the doctor's report because he didn't get evaluated by the doctor they wanted him to be evaluated.
That Mr. Keegan should be restored to full capacity today.
To me, if you believe someone doesn't have capacity, you certainly wouldn't be allowing to a guardianship.
Keegan met attorney Leslie Federico's
involved in this for 6 years.
After I had gone.
Hello everybody out there. Sorry about the confusion with some of the technical stuff. That's to be expected. I am your host, Lawyer Leslie. I also am known as Ashley Page on Facebook. So I am the same person, but I try to keep my legal world separate from my pageant world. But anyways, we are very excited. This is our first time at actually hosting this show, which is called Queens of Cause. And what we're doing tonight is, and I'm going to try to find the caption so that you guys know what's going on. But what we're doing tonight is we're doing live interviews with various pageant queens and title holders who are very politically and passionate about an issue that affects American women today. And if not American women, some issues affect every American. So tonight we are going to be speaking to, am I pronouncing it correctly, Dr. Fayola?
Yes.
And I want to put I don't know if I need to get your name on there, and I'm trying to think how to do this. I'm so sorry that all of this is kind of discombobulated tonight. But anyways, let me go ahead and, oh wait, I think you can see your name, or I guess we can't see our names, but okay. Anyways, Dr. Fayola, go ahead and introduce yourself while I'm trying to fix these technical issues.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Leslie, for this opportunity. Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Fayola Delica Deisme. I am honored and privileged to have the opportunity tonight to be with you all to talk about an important topic. It's always been important, but it hit home when you are involved in the process. Tonight, my topic is maternal health. I am a new mom, so if you hear my baby in the background, I apologize. I tried to put him to sleep earlier, but you know how babies are. I'm a native from South Florida, Miami, Florida, to be exact. I am a pageant queen. I've been in the pageant world since 2016. I've won various titles at the local level, regional, state, and national level, as well as international level. I no longer compete for now because a pageant queen never can retire. We come out retire. It's like coming out of hibernation, right?
Yes.
But I have been a pageant co-director before. I've been a pageant coach, and really what I love about the pageantry world, it does give you the opportunity to advocate for issues that are important to you. When I first started my pageantry, my platform was Empowerment 360, which I have an etiquette school, the 360 Evolution Academy, because I realized youth, especially, were not getting those life skills that we got when we were younger. You know, when I was in middle school and high school, we got home ec and all these different things to really let you build your character. But unfortunately, the curriculum no longer holds those kind of courses. And so I realized the need and started my etiquette school. Last year, I became a mom. October
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. My son is 5.5 months old, 22 weeks to be exact. And through the process, my eyes have been open. My professional background, I've been an educator for 22 years. I've been in the nursing profession for 25 years. I've been in government for 2.5 years. I am a minister. I am an entrepreneur. I mean, I wear a lot of hats. As us pageant queens, we are the modern day Renaissance woman. And so I saw the urge and the need to, I had a great experience, thank God, with my pregnancy and birth. I did have some health issues. I have history of hypertension, chronic hypertension. I did have pre-eclampsia during my pregnancy for the latter portion, right? Actually, during my delivery is really when it kind of triggered. But I've heard other horror stories, and that's what kind of scared me in my journey, understanding maternal health. Even though nursing is my background, maternity health was not my specialty. I was an ICU nurse, critical care, public health, travel nurse, all those different things. But L&D was never my specialty. But when I became pregnant, I wanted to be educated because, as we've all heard, especially women of color, have a lot of challenges and risks, whether it's because of your health issues or some public health issues. And so I wanted to be prepared because I didn't want to be a statistic, but I still understand, despite education and my due diligence and being proactive, I've come across other women who have much challenges that I wanted to be able, from my experience, now that I have another audience as a new mother and someone who's been through different pregnancy challenges, to be able to share some concerns that I've had and heard of, as well as how can we advocate for them, whether it's public policy, whether it's awareness and education, whether it's more collaboration amongst organizations, institutions, et cetera, that can address the concerns of maternal health.
And Dr. Fayola, I'm just going to ask you some questions because, I think this is a great topic. And again, I think I've told you in the past, but I had a career as a lawyer. And I was a federal and state court lawyer, and I predominantly did trial work, and I did appellate work and whatnot. And I've had the opportunity to, and I'm glad you said policy, because I want to talk about that, because I have had the opportunity behind the scenes, in the court system, to see just all the issues we truly have that people are not even. It's like a lot of people, if it doesn't affect them, they don't really care, right? They don't care until it affects them. And I always say, look, you can't sit there and wait till it happens to you, because we need people to be able to make a change, right? And I saw some of the most horrendous things, and I want to expand more on exactly, what you were saying too, because I even with you were saying with women with color, I have seen horrendous things in the end of within the judicial system, where discrimination was prevalent. It was not only women of color, but with females. There was, I was discriminated against, but I know that has nothing to do with, what you're going to talk about with your platform tonight, but these are real issues, and I'd like to understand, when you had said that, and you had said the policy, what did you, and listen, we're real on this show. Okay. We're out to bring awareness. I know people don't like to talk about this all the time, but we can't hold our heads in the sand and expect for things to get better. Do you know what I'm saying? So tell me what you specifically mean by you've seen issues, or with policy, and you've noticed even an issue with just different cultures, having maybe different issues. You know what I'm saying, within your platform.
Well, I guess my eye was open. I apologize for my ignorance. My eye was open when it even came to FMLA. I thought there was a federals, across the board, especially I work in local government. So yeah. I thought across the board that, I planned so well. I made sure I had my short-term insurance, disability. I did all my due diligence. And when I spoke to my HR and did more research, it was like, our institution does not cover FMLA paid leave. And I was like, wow, that's quite interesting. I just assumed, that would be covered. I just assumed if you work for government, that would be covered. I just assumed so many different things, because prior to that, I just kept watching a lot of movies from Europe, and they would give you a year paid.
It's so funny. I was gonna say, it's so funny you said that. I was just gonna tell you, you guys know, if you don't know, I did the research. Don't ask me. I sometimes go off on crazy tangents with research. But I researched the happiest country in the world, which is Finland. And so then I want to know, what is Finland doing that we're not? Because we are not the happiest country in the world. So I saw the same thing. They give women and their spouses and their husbands an entire year off of paid leave. So you saw You're very well aware of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, before I have this baby, maybe I need to move to Europe, because it was just an eye opener. But by God's grace, I had funding set aside, not for my maternal leave, but for something else. But that's what I had to use in the interim, because of course you don't get a full 100% of coverage from your short-term disability. I think it's like 60% or 72%, depending on if you're mixing two different policies or XYD, but that's not my specialty. So I'm just sharing from personal
Yeah.
experience. But, those were some of the things that were kind of surprising to me. And then also, too, when you talk about fathers, whether it's, I'm married, I thank God for my husband. He was so supportive. He complained, along the way. Every week we had to go to the doctor, all these different things. I didn't drive with the baby by myself till the baby was like 3 or 4 months. So I went back to work. So he was very supportive in that regards. But just even the support in that area, as far as fathers, you see a lot of things for mothers, whether it's mother classes or, I'm being of Haitian descent, Haitian American first generation here in Miami. We have a few organizations that have parenting classes, but I was like, is there something specific for fathers? Even for the hospital, which was a great institution that I gave birth and that took care of me with the doctors and everything. I asked, do you have something specific for fathers? Because I think they get left out of the equation. And then you wonder why they're not so engaged, whether it's during the pregnancy or childbearing, because there's not much support out them. If someone grew up with their father and their father was very engaged and involved, they have that example or role model. But if someone doesn't, but they may have the urge or desire to be a great father, but they just don't know how, because there's not enough resources or support or education or training out there. So those were some of the things that kind of brought my attention. But of course, too, advocating, like I said, my experience was awesome. My OBGYN was awesome. The PA that worked with him was awesome. The facility I worked at was, I had the baby, was awesome. But I've heard some other experiences which kind of scared me. I remember there was an article I read a few years ago. I was supposed to look it up before I came on, but I was trying to get the baby to sleep. So I apologize.
Really not to interrupt you, but we will, everybody I know that Mary has left a comment and we're going to address it. So don't think we see your comment. And we will address this, okay, in and out of us discussing. So feel free to ask questions. If you want to contribute or you've had an experience, please ask questions and we will go through this. So don't worry, you won't be ignored, I promise. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Fayola.
And so, these are just some of the things that, as I was saying, there was an article that I read prior to being pregnant. And it was about a doctor who was of color, locally, African-American woman. Well, not locally, but in the United States, I mean. Yeah. And and it just appalled me. I am from the medical background, but for a physician, and I believe she was OBGYN. And during her pregnancy, after the delivery, postpartum, she had some complications. She kept saying, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm feeling. And they kept ignoring her. And unfortunately, it became fatal. And that was scary to me, because I'm like, if someone in this specialty, in this space, that's her thing, and she's trying to say, hey, something is wrong, something is wrong, something is wrong. And they just kept ignoring her until it cost her life. It scared me that I even got a doula, because I'm like, yes, I may be in the medical profession, but this is not my specialty. So I wanted to make sure I had someone who can advocate for me and be that second eye and ear. So, because when you're pregnant, when you're giving birth, sometimes you're out of it. Sometimes you're tired. You really don't know what's going on. And you may not understand what's taking place or how to advocate for yourself. So I'm great that I had a doula, but there's people that won't have doulas, or there's people that won't even have people in the delivery room with them. And it's like, who's advocating for them?
Yeah, and I want to go back and really fast. Mary brings up, I want to address what Mary says, because we can kind of filter it in. Mary says that it seems some of the issues with medical research, it's male dominated. Well, I'm here to tell you guys, and you women especially, I obviously do a lot of research on the end of the judicial system, because most Americans, they're not dealing necessarily all the time with the national problems. They're dealing with the court systems a lot of times, but that's the most of Americans. And the men, I mean, even in our legal system, it's male dominated. It's male dominated. I can assure you, I mean, I'm sure if I researched and pulled the statistics, we're going to see the same thing. And I want to bring this in, because this is going to kind of thread with what you were saying too, Dr. Fayola, about women of color. Because I'm going to tell you, I had an African-American lawyer friend, and I had experienced being brought into a conference room with about 6 Caucasian men in their 70s who were retired. They were talking to me alone. It was a confidential meeting. And they said to me, how many children do you have? And I said 4, because I had 4. And they said, why aren't you just staying at home with them? Why are you working as a lawyer? And I was very insulted by that. Okay. And then I had won a hearing one time, and I got a call from opposing counsel who was a male. And he said, "Oh, I should have known you were going to win that hearing. The judge likes pretty girls." And then so I talked to my African American friend, and I was telling her about this, and she goes, "Leslie, let me tell you," she's like, "you think it's bad just being a Caucasian woman, tag on being a minority." And these are real issues. And and I'm going to say this now, I have these conversations all the time with people. You think that we've evolved, right? Even with women's rights, you think we've evolved. They've just gotten better at hiding the discrimination across the board. And let me give you an example. I'll tell you what the discrimination is so you guys can understand this. And you could probably attribute this to Dr. Fayola, on what happens in the medical field. But when you have we call it in the legal world discretion, you have what's called, if let's go to a criminal world, right? We call it prosecutorial discretion. And what that means is that somebody can commit a crime, but it's up to the prosecutor whether or not they want to pursue the charges against the person. And that's an open window for discrimination. That's an open window because there could be
That's the
tons
discretion of that person.
Yeah, because they could sit there if they wanted to. And how's anybody gonna fight it, right? If they wanted to, they could just build a case against a certain life group and just prosecute that life group continuously. So I'm just saying, when Dr. Fayola is saying that, I'm going to tell you firsthand, the world, everybody out there, and anybody that would listen to this podcast, and more people will, after this will stay up live. I mean, it stays live and it's recorded, so it'll keep going and people will keep watching. It is very alive today, very alive. And I will tell you right now, I have seen it behind the doors, and I have seen the same cases with the same facts get different determinations because of what someone's culture is. Okay. And the African American community has endured the worst I've ever seen of any culture in our judicial system. So I have to say this because, I think that so many people are ignorant out there just thinking, oh, we're in 2025 and everything's great. So Dr. Fayola, can you tell me, because I think, Mary, you're right. Okay. I haven't pulled the stats, but Dr. Fayola, talk about that since you're a nurse too. What have you seen with all of that sort of, so you're telling us about your doctor friend and what happened?
Well, she wasn't my friend. It was an article that I read. But, the challenge is when I did the research, just because, like I said, being a woman, being about to be a new mom, and when you hear articles, you hear so many different things, and people tell you, you got to know this, you got to know that. I did some research, and the challenge is here in the United States, at being one of the most industrial nations, we have the highest mortality in maternal health. And these are some of the concerns. You're like, how can a leading force as the United States have this as a top priority, as a top issue, compared to other countries? And we're saying more beyond third world countries. And so these are some of the things we have to ask ourselves. What are we doing wrong? Is it policy that needs to be changed? Do we need to provide some more support, whether that's in the i.e. workplace, in the community, in the church, et cetera, to figure out what is that? Because if my pastor gave a great example. For a nation or a people group to thrive, you have to have births. You have to reproduce.
Yeah.
So if we're not supporting this natural process, if we're not supporting, and it's not just the mothers, if we're not supporting families, if we're not supporting people, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their language, their creed, et cetera, how are we expecting the United States of America as Americans to continue to allow our country to grow? We have a decrease in women wanting to have children. I was 42 I was 42 when I got pregnant.
Yeah,
and so
I had my last one at 42 as well, right? So
yeah, and I'm just getting started.
Yes.
So we're getting married older. I got married at 42 as well. 41 going on 42. So, getting married later in life, they call it geriatric pregnancy, but thank God one of the other doctors said advanced pregnancy. So I like the advanced pregnancy better. And so, women, especially women who are accomplished, I'm a lifelong, educator, a lifelong learner, been in school all my life. I'm always, if it's a certificate, another degree, another training, because I feel like, every day I have to find a way to improve myself. But, women in that space, regardless of what color you are, we're putting these professional careers and these goals because we have to do better than our counterparts. We have to show ourselves proven. And just like you said, yes, women across the board, no matter who you are, but then women of color, you got 2 strikes. And then currently in the climate,
nobody wants to talk about it, but let's be real, people. Let's be real. That's what I'm about. So I'm disgusted by it. But go ahead.
And then being of Haitian descent, that's my 3rd strike. You understand what I'm saying? So these are all the challenges that we're facing as far as how can we move forward, because I can't just get 1 degree. When I got my bachelor's, but prior to getting my bachelor's, I was an LPN. I did LPN program in high school. So I started my nursing career at 16. So in that journey, over the years, I saw the change in healthcare. I saw how we become complacent. We become, desensitized to the humanity of the profession, to the service that we provide. We'll provide a human service. This is not a product. But unfortunately, it has become more of a product than a service because of insurance and all these other things. But that's another conversation for another day. But when we talk about maternal health, how can we get back to the importance of families? How can we get back to the importance of supporting mothers and fathers, families that have children, want to get pregnant, or doing children? I mean, unfortunately, in this climate, we've had challenges. Even IVF has been a discussion. And I've known people, and I never knew that infertility was so big until I kept meeting more and more people who were saying, I had to do IVF 3 times, 4 times, and it's expensive. Insurance does not cover it. You're lucky if you have that support system financially to be able to do it multiple times. Even me, I wanted to freeze my eggs. It was $20,000. Yeah. So these are things that, it makes you wonder, what is our priority? Of course, when we look at the spending of the United States of America, healthcare is a top priority. Healthcare is number 1 on our expense and expenditures. But most of these things are preventative. When you talk about maternal health complications, most of them are preventative. You talk about rural communities, when you talk about OBGYN, sometimes there's communities and towns and municipalities that have to be grouped together just to have 1 OBGYN in rural communities. Sometimes they would have to go 3 and 4 or 5 hours to the nearest hospital to provide service, especially if they're a high risk pregnancy. So these are some of the things we have to ask ourselves. What are we doing to address this?
I wanted to bring up, I was just reminiscing because when I had babies, I had my first one when I was young, I was 25. And then I had my last one at 42. I'm going to say there was a huge difference with even how long you got to stay in the hospital after giving birth. When I had my first daughter, right, I got to stay in, I think it was there for like 4 or 5 days, and insurance paid for it, and I was allowed to recover. And then with my second set of kids, I was out, I think it was in 2 days, and they're like brushing me right out the door, And so Mary says in the U.S. the mortality rate is 80%. Black women, yes, most are preventable. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Mary, for bringing that. I always believe in statistics, right? And this is the thing. I'll tell you where the discrimination happens. It's in the choices. It's in the choices. When people, because you see this all over, it's in the judge's choice on how to interpret the law. It's in the police's choice on who to charge with. It's in, the hospital's choice, or, it's in the choices. And they try to say everything's fair, but it's really not. It's really not. And we've seen it, and that's really sad. And what is really even worse that I wanted to bring up, because talking about, if you don't get a maternity leave, and you're forced to go back, or say that you're experiencing like postpartum depression, and you're experiencing these things that happen after you give birth. Think about if you were to lose your job, right? You were to lose your livelihood. Now you acquire a whole nother problem, which is financial strain. And I'll tell you right now, with and I'm just bringing this out there because I know it's not pertaining to you, but I'm saying other people that I've seen it happen with with CPS right now. They will go in and find a parent charged with neglect because they don't have money. Right. So it's like you're taking jobs away, and then you're taking kids away because the parents don't have jobs. Right.
And these, it's scary, and even when we talk about single parents, I'll give an example. Yesterday, I went to BJ's. I just went to go renew my membership, and put my husband on the account. And so I was like, well, while I'm here, let me get diapers and all these other things because it's cheaper than, buying it from regular stores, the wholesale price. So I'm there. I have the baby in one hand in the stroller. The other hand is a cart full of stuff. And I'm like, you can see everything toppling over and everyone's looking at me like, does she need help? And then, of course, you got to get the boxes to put the merchandise in. So I put the boxes on top of the cart after checking out. And I'm in the parking lot and the baby stroller almost tumbled over and the merchandise cart almost tumbled over. And I'm getting to the car and I finally get to the car, and then the lady who was behind me, was her and her daughter. She was like, wow, the struggle is real.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm grateful because the only challenge is my husband can't be with me all the time. But imagine if I was a single parent. So these are some of the things that, we have to even think about them. Do they have the support? You talk about finances. If you have a 2-parent household, that's still not enough, especially in Florida.
Well, I'll tell you right now that this is a problem in the legal world, is that so many people can't afford attorneys when you don't have appointed attorneys, because they say that the average income for a 2-family household is $75,000 a year for Americans. But yet you have attorney fees that, attorneys charging like $400 an hour. I've seen it go all the way up to $750 an hour, if you can imagine that. So it's like, and then in 95% of litigants in family court they don't have an attorney because they can't afford it. So, the cost of living is it's so high as it is. And, there needs to be, I apologize. We have to wrap up soon because it's a 30-minute show, and I could keep talking. I'd love for you to come back on again, Dr. Fayola. Just go to the website and just book another time. If it's open, we can continue this conversation, because I think this definitely, is relatable to most women. And I think we could get into more. I love this topic. Thank you so much, for you've done a wonderful job. And for those of you out there, because we have to wrap it up now, just so you guys know, there is a really, we're doing audition interviews because there is a really cool opportunity that I have been presented with this year. I'm not going to get into all the names involved, but I can tell you that I'm going to be appearing on a talk show with the former U.S. Secretary of Defense, is like a legal commentator, right? Has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's just about American issues. So I was like, where's our woman's voice, right? We need a woman show. So I want to take all these clips and I want to pitch it to the people I'm going to be working with, and maybe we could start, they could help and we could develop this, because I really think we really need to address these problems, and really bring awareness and what we can do. Because I actually want to speak to you more on what we can do, Dr. Fayola, for a solution. But I guess we could do that the next time, since this show, before we knew it, it's over now, right? So, but
I'll just say education and advocating. Educate yourselves to get the awareness and advocate. But Ms. Leslie, thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate you, opening the door for allowing this conversation, because, sometimes, like you said, if we don't know what's going on, it doesn't hit home, we don't care, or it doesn't affect us, or we're blind to it. But thank you once again for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys out there, please share this video. This will stay up. So even though it might not be live, please share it. Okay, we've got to start addressing issues. We've got to talk about female problems and issues, and we can't keep ignoring. Okay, on this show, we're going to get a plethora of issues, but I'll always pull in what I've seen in the legal world. And there is a lot of issues that women face, discrimination issues, just for their gender, for their race, for their age, even age discrimination. So I want to get into those issues too. These are real issues, and we need to bring awareness, and not only bring awareness, we need to all get together and think of a solution. Okay, because that's really what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and end. I will play the video again and hope that, so you guys can see a little bit about my background and why I do what I do. And then if you guys want to, come in for an audition interview, all you do is go to talkpageants.com. Very easy. You just book a time slot for 30 minutes. But Dr. Fayola, thank you so much. You've been awesome. And please, seriously, go see if there's extra time. I'd love to bring you back on.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good night.
All right. Bye, everybody.